Everybody. Welcome, friends, supporters, new and old, to the Gray Panthers NYC First Transformation Tuesday of 2024. This is the year of the dragon on the Chinese calendar for those who follow. And I am Michelle Arnaud, and I'll be moderating the webinar in my role as newly elected president of Gray Panthers. And as I begin my term, I want to remind everyone that our organization was founded in 1970 by Maggie Kuhn. And as we celebrate 54 years, I want to remind everyone that the Gray Panther mission is to combat ageism and achieve social justice through intergenerational collaboration and activism. That's quite an amazing aspiration. And in this effort, our chapter's been conducting a monthly webinar series since July 2021, in which we provide a safe space to discuss how ageism impacts our world, with the goal of making a positive difference. And specifically during these Tuesday sessions, we've been addressing the issue of long-term care and nursing homes. During this hour, we agree to disagree respectfully as we join together to ensure dignity in aging. So the intention is to build bridges and create unity among advocates, residents, families, and industry representatives, as well as across generations. So Gray Panthers NYC is committed to continuing the series until we see some movement toward the positive change we've been speaking about for over 2 years. It's quite exhausting. All our webinars are recorded and available on our website, and you can find them on gpnyc.org. So today our topic is what living as a resident can teach long-term care staff. For 2024, we're introducing innovators in the field, and today we're honored to have two distinguished guests, Leslie Petke and Jeff Ahl, who will provide us with insight and tools on long-term care living. Leslie Petke is an award-winning thought leader and national speaker in the areas of long-term care with a focus on culture change, workforce development, and teaching empathy. Leslie leads the Dignity Quotient movement, which helps long-term care organizations deliver higher quality and more profitable service through person-directed care partnerships. In addition, she's been on the front lines of the management and ownership of skilled nursing and assisted living memory care communities. Her book, which she will tell us about today, What Living as a Resident Can Teach Long-Term Care Staff, The Power of Empathy to Transform Care, is standard reading for professionals, students, and families. And we should put it in the chat so you can find it. Our second presenter, Jeff Ahl, is the owner and principal of Architecture, and he's enjoyed a long, productive career as an architect with a focus on housing for aging individuals. Jeff's expertise in every aspect of project planning, community repositioning, and budgeting, and housing for the older adult population has made him a valuable resource for community leaders. And in fact, Jeff's unique passion led him on a year-long journey of research that involved living in numerous nursing homes across the country. So he has experienced life inside, so to speak. This experience is the inspiration behind the name of his firm. So please put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to include answers during the webinar. So we're excited to have you both here today, Leslie and Jeff. And now I'll pass the mic over to Leslie.
Thank you, Michelle. Will you be monitoring the chat, or will I need to do that?
We will.
No, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. And I appreciate you all having me. As Michelle mentioned, so I'm a former nursing home administrator. I worked as a nursing home administrator for 22 years. And during that time, just a little bit about myself and how I kind of got to this point was I started my career out as a nursing home administrator, not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I had to. I grew up in long-term care, as many people have. I read so many stories about how people have grown up. Naomi Bio, we just, heard she grew up in long-term care as well, as her parents owned long-term care, and that was my story as well. And so after I graduated college, well, as soon as I turned 16, I started driving to the nursing home and working there. And as soon as I graduated college, I started working at the nursing home until, of course, I told my father that I could find a real job. And but I grew to really feel like, I think this is where I need to be. And after about 10 years of having that job and doing really well in public health surveys and things like that, I had a federal oversight survey. Some of you may be familiar with that. And my federal oversight survey did not go well. I had 27 FTAGs. 4 of those were immediate jeopardies. And one of those immediate jeopardies was against me, administration. And I'm going to talk today about some impactful things that I've had in my career and really turning points. And that was, to me, the first major turning point in my career. And I remember several years after that federal oversight survey, I was sitting next to the team leader of the Illinois Department of Public Health from my survey. I was sitting next to her at a conference, and she and I were talking about that survey. And I said to her, I can tell you that was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my professional career. But at the same time, that was the best thing that ever happened to me in my professional career, because it was such a turning point for me. And she said, I felt so bad for you during that time period, but she said, I agree with you. Knowing what I know now about you and seeing the changes that you have made, like, I needed that. I needed that to really happen. And so it was after that federal oversight survey that my mind really just opened, and I started learning about culture change. And at that time, it was called person-centered care. And I started learning about all this stuff. And I thought, this is really like the long-term care utopia that I feel like I've been looking for. I was really good at following the regulations and doing what needed to be done. You give me a template, you give me instructions, and I can do it. But that really opened my mind of all of the possibilities that could really happen. But as you all know, culture change in person-directed care isn't an easy thing to really teach to our staff, because we've been doing things the same way for so long that it's hard for many of us to really think outside of the box and do something that's different. And so that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to share my screen. So I want all of you to just for a minute, close your eyes. And I want to read this quote to you, and I want you to really try it on for me. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. We think about long-term care, and we think about all of these people that are living together and all the staff that are around us. And we hear a resident say to us, I am just so lonely here. And our first reaction, because we need to fix things, right? Our first reaction is, oh, how is it that you can be lonely? You have all of us. But if all of us are not really listening to that person, if we don't have the ability to really be empathetic to them and to really know what they're going through, that really feels lonely. Even if you have a roommate, even if you have family that comes in every day, if that person isn't really listening to you and isn't really feeling what it is that you're going through, it can be quite lonely, right? So I talk about those people that have been really impactful in my life. And this person was one of them. Her name is Lila. And one day, as we always all did, and many of us that are working in long-term care do, we go to our morning report. And that particular morning, the nurses let us all know that Lila was passing away. She probably wasn't going to make it the day. And as many of us do, we go down and we sit with the family. or we sit with that resident because we want to be able to be with them and say goodbye. These residents have been such a big part of our lives. So just like we always do, I went into Lila's room, and at the time there happened to be no one in there except for Lila. And I sat there with her and I thought to myself, did we honor her dignity? Did we honor and respect everything that she did? Was she lonely here? Was she a person that really felt like she connected with everyone? Did we bring her joy? And I really wondered, what is it like to really be Lila? What is it like to be a person in a nursing home, to be dependent on us for everything, things that really we take for granted? I need to go to the bathroom. I would like to change my clothes. I need my teeth brushed. I want to comb my hair. I want to feel and look like a normal person. Could someone wash my face, put some lipstick on me? I don't really want this to eat. I don't want to get up yet. I would like to take a shower today. Every single thing that we take for granted and do for ourselves every day, our residents are dependent on us for those things. And while I was sitting there with Lila that day, I could hear life going on outside of the nursing home. I could hear people asking, "What's for lunch today? Has so-and-so had a bowel movement?" out as they're, shouting down the hall. And I thought, do we really treat our residents with the dignity and respect that they deserve? And do we really know how to be empathetic? Because sympathizing with someone, well, that's the easy part. But to really learn empathy, you have to walk in their shoes. So it was that day, Lila taught me a huge lesson, and she was a really turning point for me. I left her room that day and I went back to my office and I gathered some of my leadership staff and I said, "Hey, you guys, I have this idea. What would you think about us inviting staff to move into the nursing home? We could give them a real diagnosis. They would have to live the role of that diagnosis the whole time they were there. And every day I would go down and give them challenges like incontinent of urine, being bathed by staff, eating pureed food, having a room change. And whoever stayed the longest would win like a cash prize, because we needed some kind of a motivating factor, a motivating catalyst to kind of get people to move in. So we kind of had that cash prize. Some leadership staff said, no one will ever do it. How could we ever get anyone to move in? And other staff said, let's do it. I think that's a great idea and we should do that. So it was something we put a note in the break room and, hey, come to the all staff meeting. This is our idea, and come to the all staff meeting if you're interested in participating. And I remember going to that all staff meeting thinking, oh, I hope there's at least 10 people there. And when I went, the room was packed. Lots of people were excited, which told me that people are hungry to find meaning in what it is that they do. So we did that. So we had people start moving in and we gave them a real diagnosis, and they had to live the role of that diagnosis the whole time they were there. I had some people live there for only 3 days, and I had other people live there for 12 days. And they were not allowed to leave, live there the entire time. And they did everything that our residents do. They went through the admission packet with their families. They had their clothes marked. They had to go through their meds, and we kept all their medication. Every single thing that our residents do, the staff had to do. So I have lots of video. I asked every staff member journaled the whole time they were there, and those journals are so precious to me, all of the things that they learned and what it was that they go through. And so I'm going to show you today 4 quick videos that will illustrate, because I sort of feel like you have to kind of see it to believe it, that will kind of illustrate what it is that they went through. And this is a quick video of someone drawing their diagnosis.
Okay, Sandra, so you have decided to move in for the Through the Looking Glass contest. It is December the 11th, 2015. And you are the second person to move in. Your sister Shelby stayed here for 10 days. So what is your motivation for wanting to do this contest?
Well, I've had family members with a lot of health issues already, and I've seen what they go through. And I've never actually felt what it's like. to be in that position. I mean, I've had health issues myself, but I've never been physically impaired, like dramatically. And I want to know what it's like to, if I get lonely at home, I can walk down my apartment steps and see mom and dad. And here you pretty much have to make an appointment with your family to see them. And I just want to know what they go through rather than pretty much acting out a script every day. That sounds bad. I mean, like, I do care for residents here, all of them, but you pretty much say a lot of the same things towards everybody. And I want there to be more meaning behind what I speak to them every day. Instead of just a good morning, I want it to be more meaningful than that. I want to know what they actually live through day to day.
So that's what you hope to bring out of this experience for yourself, is more kind of individuality.
Yes.
For your approach to care.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Are there anything that you I don't know, scared about or nervous about moving in to the nursing home?
Definitely not a touchy-feely kind of person, so it's going to be different to have someone taking care of me. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Okay.
Probably grow as a person. See what it's like to handle it.
And your goal, I'm assuming, is to beat your sister.
Of course.
So you need to stay here for 11 days to beat her. Okay. All right. Are you ready to choose your diagnosis?
Yeah,
all right. So we've got 4 random envelopes here. Yep. Go ahead and open it. Read it out loud, please.
You have a right hip fracture and are confined to a wheelchair. You are non-weight bearing to right lower extremity. You have confusion and try to get up without assist. You must be kept in a supervised area when up in your wheelchair or not in bed. You are not to be left unattended in the bathroom or during bathing. So exactly what she
So how bizarre is that? This diagnosis that she had. Wow. Okay. All right. So how do you feel about that diagnosis?
Game on.
Okay. All right. Good luck.
I think, in today's world, we are, I think we're struggling more than we ever have with the staff turnover and recruitment of new staff. And I think that this tells us, as much even she was starved to find meaning in what it is that she does, that she was a CNA, and she's saying in her video that when I come to work, I want to be able to say more than, how was lunch today? Did you get your hair fixed? Are you going to go to bingo? We kind of have those standard things that we say to our residents, but she wanted to have more meaning for that. She wanted to have more joy in what it is that she does. And this experience, and I kind of started out talking about it as a contest when we first started doing it, but it was really more of an experience for them, because all of the contestants, all the people that participated, said that it was never about the money for them, but it was really more about the experience. But that she, again, that she really wanted to have that meaning in what it is that she does. And as a CNA, she wanted to know really how it was to connect with those residents, a young person, how to connect, how to have meaning, how to grow with them. Jeff and I were recently talking, and the more I talk about what it is that we did, I have aha moments every time. And Jeff and I were talking the other day about this as we were preparing for today. And I was like, the 7 domains of well-being from the Eden Alternative, it's all of those things, not just for our residents, but for our staff as well, that they all learned about those 7 domains, even just through doing this. And one of the other things that she mentions in here, that she said, I'm really not a touchy-feely person, and it's going to be weird having all of these people providing personal care to me. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very eye-opening, that we just assume that when a person moves into long-term care, when a person, is having any kind of medical thing done to them, that we just assume everybody's kind of comfortable with that. And, I have a niece she jokes that she's just not a hugger. When people go to hug her, she kind of stands back. And we just assume that everybody in long-term care, and also a very ageist thing that we think is that everyone that's older loves to be hugged. Everyone that's older loves to be touched on the back. And not everyone likes that, but we make this assumption that everyone does. And I think that was really eye-opening whenever she said that as well. So this is a quick video of a challenge that her sister Sandra actually had to experience.
Okay, Shelby, it's Monday morning and you moved in Friday afternoon. Are you ready for your first challenge of the day? Mm-hmm.
Oh my, the staff will not brush your teeth for 24 hours. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
So look at how that's affecting you. Do you think we do a really good job at mouth care here?
To be honest, probably not, no.
Mm-mm.
That's something that we all need to improve on. Wow.
Okay, so I'll go down to your room and confiscate your toothbrush and toothpaste, okay?
You know, when I turned my video camera off to her, she started crying. And I said, wow, like why that to me, that seemed like an easier challenge than all of the other things that people have had to go through during their stay there. And when she's crying, I said, that really has impacted you. Why? And I said, based on how it's impacted you, you must, as a CNA, make sure that your residents' teeth get brushed every single time you work. And she dropped her head and she said, no, I don't. And things as normal as brushing our teeth, I mean, that makes us feel normal. Those are the things that we do. That's something that's been ingrained as us since we've been toddlers, right? That we've been brushing our teeth. That's our routine. And I started thinking about people that have dementia and how routine is just so important, how things that have just been so ingrained in what we do every day. And thinking about that, could it be something as simple as I forgot to brush someone's teeth before while I was getting them ready for bed, or when I got them up in the morning, and someone that might be searching in someone else's bathroom or something like that. Could it be as simple as that we just forgot the most basic step of just brushing someone's teeth? But I thought that was really important. As you can see, it's important to her to be made up, to look nice every day. And she learned through that I need to take more time to really make sure that my residents that they feel human, that they look like they're used to looking, that I take more time into all of that and things aren't just so rushed. This is a compilation video that we did put together. You can find this actually on YouTube, called under Aveston Countryside Manor Through the Looking Glass. Aveston Countryside Manor is actually the nursing home that I did all of this at. I'm no longer part of that nursing home, but that's where I was a nursing home administrator for 22 years. So you can find this video on YouTube. You can share it with your friends and things like that. Tell them about it. Before you watch this video, we were not professional videographers by any means, so it's all very, very basic. Other things that you're going to see in there is a lot of the practices that we were doing definitely were not person-centered at the time. We were on our culture change journey, and as you know, that takes time. All those changes don't happen all at once. And what sticks out to me most in this video is you're going to see Nikki, when she is in bed and I'm asking her some questions, you're going to see on her headboard a little white square, and it's a stick person, because we weren't doing consistent and dedicated assignments at the time. And that was the only way to really communicate with the staff, so that they knew if a person needed a 1 assist, a 2 assist, or a mechanical lift. And so we thought we were being brilliant by putting those things on there. So we've learned so much, of course, since then, and still learning, all ways to be even better. But that was one thing that I wanted to point out, that I look back and I find that to be kind of funny because, gosh, what we know now, right? So I'll go ahead and show you this video.
What do you see? But there's more to me. What do you see?
We decided to do this competition. I was very intrigued about how a resident's life really is like every day in and out.
What you think about the staff participating in this program to get to know what it's like to be dependent on someone else to take care of you and living in a nursing home.
Well, at first, I don't know what to think about it. That's something new for me. And more I think about it, I think it's a good idea. That way, each helpful person, CNA, housekeeper, knows what I really need,
Yes.
What do you see when you look at me? I might be older, but there's more to me. What do you see? Take time to know my story. Take a closer look at me.
I've learned that it's a lot harder in elder in a home than I ever thought it would be.
Take time off your work and go out and help out a lot more. There's always time where I take a break where I could usually just go out and help the girls out more and show them everything that I've learned to, make this place their home instead of just treating them like another person, like an object.
What kind of things do you think that you are going to take from this contest, and when you come back to work next week, hopefully, because you're not going to still be a resident, do you think it's going to be one of the first things that you want to do?
Slow down.
Oh, that's a great one.
Everyone slow down. Take more time to do it.
Made my heart smile, Nikki. Thank you.
Take a closer look at me.
Okay, I have to, there we go. You guys, I've done this presentation, oh my gosh, hundreds of times. And I've seen that video even more times. And I still tear up every time I see it. There were so many tearful moments in this whole experience for me and really for the staff as well. You saw Amy in the video, she was rocking back and forth and she had the goggles on. We had a whole impaired vision kit that we were able to use with the staff so that they can feel what it was like to be blind, to have glaucoma, all the different vision impairments. And she's rocking back and forth and she had those tissues underneath of her goggles. When she was one of 5 people that moved in at the same time. And that particular day when all of those participants were drawing their diagnosis, she drew hers. And her diagnosis was that she was blind. She had an infectious respiratory infection, and she was quarantining in her rooms, and she couldn't have, her family was discouraged to visit. And Amy was a very outgoing person. So for her to be in her room and to not have visitors was really hard for her. And when she drew her diagnosis and she read it, she under her breath said, "This is really going to suck." And one of her coworkers that was moving in as well said, "Oh, I'll trade you." And I said, "Oh, no, there's no trading. In real life, we don't get to trade our diagnosis for someone else that we feel like is having an easier life experience," right? That was really like the first lesson. And, you know, Nikki, you see, she was the person, and this is Nikki again, but Nikki's the person that you see whenever I'm asking her the questions, what is the first thing that you're going to do when you come back working as a CNA? And she says, "Slow down." That was huge for Nikki. And I walked out of the room that day and started crying because I thought, wow, I mean, like, we've changed her. This has changed her. This has changed me, this whole experience, because Nikki was a person that actually had started working there when she was 14. She would ride her bike to work. She worked in activities. And as soon as she turned 16, she became a CNA. And Nikki was almost 30. And when I broached the idea of moving into the nursing home, and she had said to me, "I really want to move in because I have forgotten why I'm here. And I need to remember my why. And if after I decide to move out, I still haven't remembered my why, then it's probably time for me to move on, because the residents that live here deserve better than what I'm giving them now." So I want to share with you Nikki's diagnosis. She got sicker the longer she stayed. So every day I would go down to her with kind of her challenge. Her challenge was that every day she just got a little bit worse. And so she was on a mechanical soft diet when she first moved in, and then she had to be on a pureed diet, and she was a Hoyer lift, and she was dependent on staff for nearly everything. And one day she's out and she's eating her lunch, and she's spooning up her thickened milk and eating her mashed potatoes. And Nikki was a person that like frequently went to McDonald's and had Big Macs. And I go out to lunch. I go up to her at lunchtime because she's sobbing. I mean, she's sobbing, can hardly eat. And I went up to her and I got down on my knees and I said, "Nikki, what's wrong?" And she said, "This contest of yours, it sucks." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "But do you want to know why I'm really crying? I'm crying because in a few days, I'm going to decide I'm done with this. And I'm going to get up out of this wheelchair and I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to get in my car. And the first place I'm going is McDonald's. But Mimi never gets to do that. And that's why I'm crying." I mean, what a lesson. At the time, Mimi was a person that the staff kind of argued over who had to go take care of her, because she was challenging. She was demanding. People just couldn't figure her out. Like, why can't she get it through her head that she can't eat the chicken leg? She's on a pureed diet. Why can't she get it through her head that she can't be left alone in the shower? Yes, we have to stand there in the bathroom with her because we're afraid she's going to fall. And Nikki was experiencing all of those things that Mimi had to go through every day. Mimi didn't get to decide, "I'm done with this and I'm going to get up out of this wheelchair and I'm going to McDonald's," but Nikki got to do that. And she said, "That's why I'm really crying." That's how we really got it. That's how we really learned empathy. The last video I'm going to show you is this whole experience changed the culture of our community. And we decided as a group that, you know what, our staff, like, we are so strong here, and the relationships that we have with our staff, we became one. There was none of us and them anymore, that we all became one, and our relationships with our staff, with our residents, became so reciprocal. And we were so proud of who we had become, that as we were hiring new staff, we wanted to make sure that we were hiring staff that kind of owned who we were now and that wanted to be a part of it. We didn't want to hire people that would start breaking down our culture. And so we came up with the idea of all brand new staff would have to move into the nursing home and live with a resident for 24 hours before they got to start any orientation of whatever role they were hired for, whether that was a CNA, maintenance, laundry, dietary, the business office. Every single person that we hired were required to move in and live with a resident. We called it our elder shadowing program. It became a non-negotiable for us. Some people said, well, what if someone we're hiring is a single parent and they just can't spend the night here? And we said, if they value us enough, they will find a way. And we did have a few people that said, man, I really want to work there, but I just don't think I've been here all day, but man, when it comes to thinking about spending the night in the nursing home, that kind of creeps me out. And I just don't think I could do it. Well, we would say to them, then I'm sorry, but you don't get to work here. I bet the nursing home down the street is hiring. You could go apply there. It dramatically changed. Our turnover rate decreased dramatically because of that. We had started a resident hiring committee. So our residents actually hired our staff, and then that staff had to actually move in to the nursing home and live for 24 hours. Why did that decrease our turnover rate? Because those new employees already began developing that relationship, that connection, that one of those 7 domains of well-being. They already connected with those residents. And so it's a little hard to leave on your 15-minute break and not come back when you have already connected with those people. So here's a quick video of what that looked like.
Okay, hi Alicia. So you have been participating in our elder shadowing program. You are going to be working here in housekeeping. And a part of our requirement before you can begin working here is to move in and live here for 24 hours to shadow someone that already lives here. That is a requirement of us. And I just want to hear from you what your perspective has been, how it has been for you so far, and how it would have been had you not participated in this program.
I think my experience so far with the shadowing program has been really, really effective. It opens my eyes to see like what it's like to actually live here, and it's really not that bad, if I must say honestly. I mean, once I work here, I think it gives me a view of like, hey, maybe you should approach them differently, or like maybe not use such like, I guess, old words you could say, and come off as a different approach. And well, like I've been in a wheelchair for I think almost 24 hours, and it definitely takes a lot. Like wheeling yourself around all the time is tiring. And it takes a lot out of you, and you have to like try to navigate places. And the residents I've talked to, it like opened your eyes to see that they really have a story, that they're not just a person that's in a wheelchair. They're not just like some person that has gotten old, that has a problem, that needs help. Like it's actually a real person. Like you have to remember that they're still people and they still have a story and things like that.
Okay, we were just doing our orientation. We talked about kind of you had mentioned that you felt like our staff here was a lot different than other staff that you have kind of worked with. Can you kind of tell me again what your thoughts were?
Here it's kind of just like a mash of people. You guys don't like divide yourselves into every single department. Everyone just kind of like is a melting pot together. Like you all work together, you all are here for the same thing. So when I asked about scrubs, you guys didn't say you strictly wear this color. We're very lenient about it. And I was like, oh, well, that's very nice, because it feels like you're not so divided. You feel like you're all one kind of unit. If you don't have all those strict rules, you're not like cut off like this is just housekeeping, this is just food, this is just administrating. And it's kind of just, it's more welcoming like that.
Good. So our name tags don't say that we are the administrator, we are the RN, or we are the housekeeper. Instead, we're advocates or life enhancers. Have you decided yet which you're going to be?
A life enhancer.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Alicia.
So as Alicia says in there, that's exactly what we did. We took the titles off of our name tag. So our name tags didn't say Leslie Administrator. Mine said Leslie Advocate. It didn't say Alicia CNA. It said Alicia Life Enhancer. So those were two titles sort of that we chose because we felt like we're all here for the same thing. and it's to advocate for the people that live there and also the people that work there, for their coworkers, and to enhance their lives. So that's exactly what they did. So as Michelle mentioned, I did write a book of the same title, What Living as a Resident Can Teach Long-Term Care Staff. You can find this book on Health Professions Press or Amazon. And as you guys were mentioning also at the beginning about dignity in long-term care and dignity in aging, and that was a word that kept coming up through this whole experience, that word dignity. And we learned really well how to treat our residents with dignity, and we wanted to make sure that we were also treating our staff with dignity as well. And so that's how I sort of came up with the name of my consulting company called Dignity Quotient. And I understand that dignity looks different to so many people. So how do you really measure that? And so that's where the name Quotient came from. And so here's my contact information. And I will turn it then over to, as Jeff, so I'll introduce you. Jeff was a person that he and I met as I was posting on LinkedIn about this experience that I was doing. I saw that Jeff was doing a similar experience as an architect in senior living, that he was moving into nursing homes throughout the country. And I believe at the time, Jeff, and you can correct me, but I think at the time was really learning, like, are we as architects, or you as an architect, creating things how people would want them? Is this how big the bathroom really should be, or is this a nice kind of living space? But what you left with was so much more than that, right? And I will let you, I'm not going to speak for you because I could talk for hours on this, but I will let you take it from there.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, so my name is Jeff Hall. And first of all, I don't have anywhere near the background you do. I'm just an architect, but your knowledge and what you've got there is phenomenal. Great story. Leslie is correct. I started this because I had been working in design as an architect for 25 years already at that time. And my firm was really looking to find a way to differentiate ourselves from any other firm, because a lot of firms say that they design senior housing or senior living or assisted living or skilled nursing, you name it, they all do it. But there are a few that really get it, and they understand how building design needs to interact with culture and the relationships that are within that. I didn't know that, frankly, at the time. At the time, we put together a program where we believed we needed to go out and, as architects, show our obligation to design homes that would improve the overall quality of life for the people we were designing for. So I decided to go live in nursing homes. And so I did so. I lived in 7 different nursing homes in 5 different states over about a year. And I stayed in each nursing home for 3 days at a time. And Leslie is correct. I think she actually reached out to me through LinkedIn. And that's what started the friendship that we've had now for over 10 years as colleagues, kind of sharing things back and forth. And I went and stayed at her home. So what I think I want to do in this presentation, because frankly, everything that Leslie just talked about is what I would typically talk about in my presentation to people, but from the perspective of a resident, where she was the one administering that and having people serve as a resident. When I lived as a resident, I really learned some things that were much different than what I'd intended to learn. So remember, again, we went out there to move in to figure out what we could do from an architectural standpoint to improve the overall quality of life for everybody that was living there. And ultimately, what we found out that was that of all the issues that I dealt with, maybe 10 or 12% of them had really anything to do with architecture, and that in fact, maybe 80 to 85, maybe even 90% of everything that I experienced came down to one of 2 things. And that was either a relationship with myself, with the care provider, or the relationships that I heard during my stay of one of the healthcare providers with her friends down the hall. And Leslie, you said something that reminded me of one of my stories that I tell in my presentation of, if it's not real, if your culture and if the way people are treating you with dignity is not real, as a resident, I knew it, and I knew it instantly, because I could tell the moment they were done talking to me and they're moving on to that next task, that they were no longer interested in who I was and what I was doing. And I remember people walking into my room and treating me wonderfully and walking out of the room. And as they were walking down the hall, I remember one in particular talking about how she was angry about her husband because her husband had just spent all the money she just brought home in her paycheck buying pizza that night. And I just thought, well, that's, it's all good and fine, but why don't you tell that story to me? You had to wait till you left the room to tell that story. And I want to be part of that. Anyway, I digress. We found that 85% of the issues that I dealt with had nothing to do with architecture. It had everything to do with culture and relationships. And that really changed my direction back in about 2010, 2011, when it comes to design, to do something that we attempt now to do something that we weren't doing before. The term we use in our office, which Alicia actually alluded to this in her presentation, and that is that we try to encourage what we call selfless understanding. Rather than just understanding what a client says and taking notes so that we know what they're going to do, we have to look at it and we have to understand it selflessly. In other words, I have to take it away from what I'm thinking and try to understand how that person is thinking about that, and try to understand where they come from, the lenses, the filters that they're looking through as they tell me this is what we need in design. And we found that to be rather successful as it relates to the relationships we now have with our clients. So anyway, bought into this so much so that frankly, I left the firm I was with at the time, started the firm that I'm doing now. We specialize in senior living, and our firm name is Architecture. And the word cure, C-U-R-E, stands for culture. The C-U stands for culture, and the R-E stands for relationships. So we try to instill that in everything we do and the way we operate. And then obviously with the senior living clients that we work with, which about 90% of all the work we do is based on senior living. So that's kind of my history and kind of what I've done. And what I really want to do is I want to make sure that I'm supporting what it is that Leslie had said, but from that different perspective. And here's the perspective that I would offer. In the time that I stayed in these homes, which is a total of 21 days, I would say that of those 7 homes, at least 5 of them subscribed to some culture change approach. And there's several out there. But in one way or another, they subscribed to it. But there were maybe only 2 or 3, one of which was Leslie's home, that honored that where the culture was ingrained, not as something that you subscribed to or that you prescribed to your residents or prescribed to your staff, more importantly, but the people bought into. And that from top to bottom, from the administration to the healthcare providers and to your maintenance team and the CNAs, the DON, everybody bought into that. And when that happens and everybody is supporting it, it takes it to a different level that was really phenomenal. And again, I experienced that at 2 or 3 different places, one of which was at Aveston. And I think I would finish by just telling you one of the experiences that I had was in Ohio, actually, that was amazing, was when I sat down after dinner, which was amazing because the dinner that I had, I was dining at a table with a menu that I could really have about anything that I wanted. I had wine served, I had cloth linens. And after I was done eating, I went and sat down at the couch, and one of the providers or healthcare providers sat down next to me, dressed in street clothes, but treated me like I was her father. And she worked sitting next to me. She was charting sitting next to me. And I know with HIPAA regulations, you've got to be careful what you're doing there, but she held her book in a way that it was perfectly safe from me being able to see anything. And she conversed with me as we were doing this, and we watched TV. And in the middle of that, This nurse got up because she recognized that the TV needed to be dusted. And she went over and she dusted it. And then she grabbed the vacuum and vacuumed because somebody else had taken food through as we were watching TV and they dropped something on the floor. The next day when I woke up, I guess she would have been the physical therapist. The director of physical therapy came to me and asked if there would be an ability for her to help me with my bath that day because everybody else is busy. And I thought, wow, there's a testament to somebody that is saying, you know, the whole philosophy of that's not my job. She did not say that. Everything was everybody's job. It was absolutely phenomenal. And so that was another one of those places that I lived in where the people had really subscribed to understanding what culture change was. So I'll end by just saying kudos to you, Leslie, for what you've done and the success that you had. And to all of you that are listening, I would just say, I am living proof, not as a resident, but as somebody that has been resident-like for 21 days, that this stuff really works. And it's phenomenal. It changed my life. And I started the firm that I operate today as a result of that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Leslie, Jeff, both thank you. So I've known Leslie for a few years when the pandemic started, and I was looking for people to help me figure out how to get in to see my son. Leslie lives right by where I am, so she was on my list of people that I was connected to. I met Jeff last summer at the Center for Innovation Conference, and that was the first long-term care conference I'd ever been to. In my mind, I'm going as I'm just the mom trying to learn, and ran into Leslie that night, and Jeff and Leslie and I had dinner. I was so blown away by the fact that there was an architect there and what he understood about the culture change and what needed to be done. I've spent a lot of time over the last 3 years educating myself on long-term care and the culture change and all those different things. And I'm doing it because I'm doing it for my son. To see somebody who builds a building, you don't expect that. And the whole experience with that, when we started this conversation of, let's have Leslie do it, I'm like, hold on, we need Jeff too. Because I think people need to understand it needs to come from every aspect of anybody who has their hands on our buildings. Because it's not just build the building. It's not just who's running the building. It is the entire culture from lock, stock, start to finish.
You know, Carrie, thank you. I would say that, we have found that when we work with clients, different clients have different perspectives. And so we attempt to design around what their goals are. And you really can design a building that'll support a culture, and you can design a building in a different way that will support another culture. And getting that match is critically important. So I appreciate that, Carrie, because we have found it to be critically important, the work we do.
There is a question where somebody is asking about the environmental and physical changes, Jeff. Do you think you can give us a couple of highlights about the design?
Oh, wow. I didn't prepare for that. Sure. So I'll give you an example of one of the things that, is pretty typical in a classic nursing home, that you kind of have your common area where you have your commercial kitchen, and you have your bathing facility, and you have your bath aides that come and get you and take you down the hallway and put you in the bathing room, and you're bathing. And I learned the juxtaposition of the spaces within a home is very important to how you feel when you're being treated. In one particular home that I stayed in, as I was in the bath, receiving a bath, the lady that was assisting me had a question for somebody. So they opened the door so I could look across the hallway and into the dining room as she yelled out to her other helper, "Hey, I got a question about this. Are you available? I got to ask you a question." And somebody had to come over and answer that question. And I thought, would that happen in my home? That would never happen in my home. The bathing experience for me should be something that most of you have probably heard of. It's more of the spa. It's my time to go and get away. So to me, having that designed in a way that I can control lighting, that I can control the sound within there, maybe watch TV. One of the places, again, a place I stayed in Ohio, when I went in to get my bath, I got into the bath, they filled the tub with water. They handed me a remote control, asked me if I wanted a glass of wine, and then asked how long I wanted for them to leave me alone so I could spend my time alone, and then they would come back in and help me with anything that I needed help with. Never experienced that anywhere else like that, but that was phenomenal. That's what it was like when I don't drink wine at home, but that's what my experience is like. So yeah, I have probably 15 or 20 very specific things like that we have changed in how we design homes now to account for things like that. And that's another presentation I could give you. That would be awesome to be able to do, but that's an example of the kinds of things that we would address in design.
Well, we'll have to invite you back.
That'd be great.
Another question, I guess, for Leslie. Have you seen much interest from nursing homes in staff stays?
You mean other nursing homes doing the same thing?
Right, to use your model. Mm-hmm.
I have, I know of a couple of other nursing homes in Illinois that kind of tried the same experience. A couple of nursing homes in Missouri, after whenever I spoke at conferences, when people would come and hear me speak, then they went back and tried the same thing in their homes. I have never heard of another home doing it as part of their orientation, which I would love that every home does that. I think that makes such a big difference. I've been doing the Artifacts of Culture Change 2.0 assessment tool. I've been doing training on that over the last several months to different communities around the state of Illinois. And last week when I was doing that training, I had someone, it was a person from hospice, speak up and said, you know, I go into homes and I observe staff. They've not been there long enough to even know a person's name. And, you know, she says, you're teaching us about this tool. And if they could just take the time to actually learn their name and who they are. And I thought, man, if just every nursing home would commit to doing an experience like this, of having their staff move in and live like residents, it would be life-changing. It would change so much of everything that they do. So I really do wish that more people would do it, but I've only heard of a handful of homes that have. Now, of course, there might be lots of them out there doing it, and I just haven't heard about it.
Well, I've shared a link in the chat so that people can order your book.
Thank you.
Sure. I guess
so can I add something real quick?
Go ahead, Karen.
So as Leslie does her Culture Change 2.0, I actually sat through one of the trainings a few months ago. I got a surprise that day that I didn't know was coming. She actually went to my son's facility to work with him. I don't know who recorded it, whatever. The one thing my son's facility does, which also works in these lines to some degree, my son and one of the other residents rotate new hire orientations, and they sit with the staff for an hour or two explaining what it's like to live there. And you would think, first of all, that somebody gave my son a job that's as important as the President of the United States, because God forbid something happens and he can't go to work on his Tuesday. Mm-hmm. But it has made a difference. And our facility does they do believe in culture change, and they try very hard. Not that they always succeed, because nobody is perfect, but any of these ideas, whether it's Leslie's, whether it's letting residents be at new hire orientations, whether it's bringing other people from the outside into the facility because they're active in it somehow, we are all together going to be able to make a change.
Thanks, Carrie. Also, Leslie, did all the staff who entered the contest do it at the same time, and how many?
So when I first did it, I had some people that were students, that were college students and things like that. So they couldn't, not all of them could commit to I have 5 days in a row to be able to do this. So the first time I did it, I allowed people to choose from, I think it was from like October 1st through December 31st, that you had to be able to move in. So some people kind of waited for like their Christmas break or Thanksgiving break. I had somebody that lived there over Thanksgiving. So they did it like that. The benefit of doing that is that the last person that moved in knew how long they needed to stay in order to kind of to win that money.
Wow.
The negative of that is that those people didn't have each other to lean on. So after that, most people moved in together. Like one time I had 5 people move in and together. And so it felt a little easier for them because they had each other to kind of go visit in each other's room and say, oh my gosh, so what happened to you today? What did she make you do? And things like that. So there was sort of that camaraderie, that connection, that relationship that they found sort of another resident that they could lean on. Whereas the first group that did it didn't have that. So that was interesting too. We actually did it we had 5 different groups that actually moved in and lived like residents.
Okay, thank you. We are at the end of the hour. So I want to thank our wonderful presenters for this amazing hour, which taught us a lot about taking for granted brushing our own teeth and other things. But I also want to let you know, it was in the chat that on April 30th, we're going to have a Dutch young man come and speak about living in a nursing home in Holland, where he lived for 3 years during COVID. His name is Toon Tobes. He wrote a book. It's a bestseller in Europe called The Housemates. But also, please join us next month, February 27th. We're going to have also a wonderful presentation on innovations in how to transform long-term care with Anne Montgomery, who is an amazing policy thinker in Washington, D.C. So thanks, everybody. Don't forget, this presentation has been recorded and you can listen to it on our YouTube channel, gpnyc.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.